magnificent beings, and welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I am your Life Mastery coach and author of the delightful and powerful book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors of the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Go check out the Amazon site and pick up some copies of those books and maybe share them with your friends because they're really very, very awesome books. Anyway, this is episode 190 from Life Mastery TV, and our topic today is called Relax into Healing. Now, when you think of healing, your first thought probably involves visions of recovering from an injury or trauma. And of course, this is certainly one perspective on the topic of healing, but it by no means is the only aspect. In fact, that view seems to be limited only to the physical realm. And in reality, healing has to do not only with the body, but also with the heart, mind, and soul. And from another perspective, it could be said that healing is a process of becoming whole. Since most of us go through life working through our limiting beliefs about who we are and why we are here, this process, this healing process, can be thought of as a lifelong journey. Sure, a small number of people may be whole in the true sense of the word from a very early age, perhaps even from birth. But most of us seem to go through a gradual journey of waking up to the truth of who we are. And since it is a process, then for many of us, it may never be complete during a single lifetime, or even, in some cases, many lifetimes. So in this episode of Life Mastery TV, we're going to look at healing in a whole new way. We're going to bring a lot of relaxation and ease and grace into the process so that it becomes a much more enjoyable part of your journey. My guest today is a certified master intuitive coach and healing facilitator with a wealth of education and life experience behind her. She is a dynamic speaker and powerful personal guide who draws from a broad skill set to guide people to find better health, improved relationships, and work they enjoy, especially if it's a pain that seems to get worse when I'm sitting down or taking a particular posture or something like that. I do find myself trying to, I'm tensing up muscles and stuff, and I'm muscles that I probably didn't even realize I had, but they're tensing up in order to compensate for this pain. And I 100% agree that I've got to relax if I want the pain to go away. And what's interesting is when I do find a way to relax, the pain does seem to kind of fade into the background. But while I am busy trying to find that relaxing position, I notice that the pain kind of makes me want to move certain ways. And, have you noticed it? So yeah,
it's like pushing you around.
Exactly. So trying to find the right, what's the word I want to say? Controlling those small muscles, I found, has been a challenge. I really have to focus my attention. And when I do focus my attention, it's kind of the opposite idea of relaxing. I'm actually trying to focus and laser focus my attention on a particular part of my body. And then I can relax those muscles. The spasming that's associated with that pain can tend to go away. All right. Anyway, I've gone on long enough.
Yeah, well, what I've learned is in healing facilitation is that we want to try to, instead of focusing on the pain, we want to find areas of ease. And if we focus on areas of ease in our body, then we're actually inviting areas that are not so much in ease to find their relationship with ease again. So it's almost counterintuitive to what we've been taught, because we humans are prey animals. So we are just wired to focus on the problems, what's going to get me. And, that really brings our attention in. And yet law of attraction says what you focus on expands. So do you want to expand the dis-ease, or would you like to expand the ease?
Yeah.
And so what I teach people in my online class is a simple and powerful process for for finding ease.
And is there a way for you to share that process here in about 2 or 3 minutes?
Oh yeah, I figured we'd be doing it today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not quite at the point where you want to do that yet. So you let me know and we'll just make it work. I want to talk a little bit though about this concept of healing versus curing. Now
Yes.
you mentioned that in your own write-up, and I wanted to
Mhm.
understand your perspective and your different ideas about those, because I think you're right. In some ways we tend to use those words almost interchangeably, even though I think on some level we know they're not quite the same thing.
Right, right. It's very important, I think, to know the difference between these two words. And like you said, in our culture, the words get interchanged,
Mhm.
and they're actually very different things. So a cure is a treatment of some kind that is focusing on the problem with the goal of getting the problem, the symptom, to go away.
Mhm.
And in some cases, that's great. I mean, we have some medical wizardry. If you've got some acute infection or acute injury going on, thank goodness we've got the medical system that we do to help us move through that,
Right.
in the short term. But in the long term, focusing on problems is going to get us more problems, according to the law of attraction. So what healing is about is this journey. Is really a journey of self-discovery. It's the idea that your symptoms have meaning. They're not just something you want to make go away. They're trying to tell you something.
Mhm.
They're asking you to dig a little deeper and to discover what you need to be doing differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like what you just said about symptoms. You know,
Yeah.
they tell us that something is not working in the same way that pain is kind of a symptom, I guess. But it's a signal that something isn't quite right, and if you don't fix it, then the symptoms and or the pain are going to get worse. So
Right.
yeah, you can't
Right.
just ignore them. But like you say, you don't necessarily want to focus only on the symptoms, because um, this is part of the problem. One of the negative side effects of our current system is we tend to focus more on the symptoms and not on the
Right.
underlying causes of those symptoms.
Right.
And so as a
Right.
result, sure, we make the symptoms go away, but we haven't really healed anything or cured anything. We've eliminated a symptom. That's all we've done. So it's
Yeah. And
important to
here's
have
the
that
interesting
awareness.
thing,
Yeah.
that a healing can lead to a curing, and a curing can lead to a healing.
Hmm.
So they can be connected. The example I like to use is a little bit extreme, but let's say you've got a blockage in an artery and you have to go get open heart surgery, and they crack your chest open and operate on your heart and the arteries. And so the cure is that they've gotten that blockage out of there so that your heart can return to some normal functioning. Now, the healing that might have taken place is just the opening of your chest. And perhaps you, just because of that, you become a more open and generous and loving person. That can
Interesting.
happen.
Yeah.
Now, in healing, um, I think a lot of us get into healing because we do want to get rid of some symptom or solve some problem. And as a healing facilitator, I'm not licensed to diagnose or treat any problems or any illnesses. And so I have to tell people that, here's what we're doing. I'm teaching you some strategies, and a side benefit may be, it's very common for the benefit of a symptom going away to come in. It's just not guaranteed, because I don't know what your journey is. I don't know what you need to do. The idea of the healing facilitation is to get you in touch with your inner wisdom on your
Yeah.
journey, so
Hmm.
that you are hearing what you need to do, from
Yeah.
inside.
I like that terminology, the healing facilitator,
Yeah,
because
I
I
do
know that a
too.
lot of people, they like to have the label healer on their name. But
Yeah.
I kind of resonate with what you're saying, and I know Sarah is here too. she's a person who believes in the same thing. The idea that I don't really have the power to heal you. Nobody does. Only
Exactly.
you have the power to heal yourself. But what
That's
I can
exactly it.
do is I can point out what I see, and I can help you find your own method for healing. And that's really what
Exactly.
I think you're talking about with your healing facilitation.
Yeah, you got it.
Yep. So, so let's talk a little bit about stress then, because obviously the opposite of relaxation is tension, and
Yes.
stress is a big cause of that. And of course, we have no lack of opportunities for experiencing stress in our society.
This is
It
true.
seems like everywhere we turn, there's something new that we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be adding to our checklist, you know?
Yes. Yes, the complications build. So we can talk all day about external stressors. And I remember when I was in corporate, there's training. Oh, how can you de-stress? And what I don't hear talked about much is the internal sources of stress, these unconscious sources of tension that are coming from our life experiences. So what happens as we go through life? We have experiences, some of them are good, some of them not so great. And if you have a traumatic experience, big or small, that tension loads up in your body. That it's an energy that hangs on for later processing. And that, I believe, is why our lives get more and more complicated. We take on more of a defensive posture. So the shoulders come in, you're kind of protecting yourself. It's a defensive posture. And then when you're in that defensive posture, what that's doing to your spinal cord is stretching it. And when the spinal cord is stretched, that is a source of triggering the sympathetic nervous system. So it's keeping people in a chronic state of stress. And as most people know, when you're in stress response, you can't think very well. You're just setting up for fight or flight. So you're basically going into the lizard brain. The blood is diverted from your cortex, which is the area that you want to be in for making decisions, but it goes to the hindbrain. It goes away from your organs, so your digestion is not optimal. It's all going to the extremities for that fight or flight.
Right.
So I think this is a big issue right now, people running around in chronic stress response. And part of it is due to these internal tensions. It's almost as if you were, holding your fist. If everybody in the audience wants to do this for just a minute, try hanging on to this for any amount of time. Pretty quickly, it gets uncomfortable. And luckily, we can consciously release that, but we tend to have tensions in our bodies that we can't consciously release. We need strategies. We need like nervous system upgrades, if you want to talk in terms of like computers.
It's funny. I don't know how many workshops I've been to where a facilitator will say, all right, everybody, let's just take a breath. Now, I understand why they're doing that. They're trying to bring the attention back into the body and into the breath. But often the unspoken intention there is to help us to relax. All right, taking your breath can help remind you about relaxing, but one breath isn't going to do it. So you have to, this is what I have learned. I mean, for me, when I want to relax, really the best way I have found to relax is by sitting in meditation with my eyes closed and not having any external stimulus going on, except maybe some light music or something, or maybe some incense to kind of give me a calming feeling. But really, the more I do that, the more I give my body permission to just kind of relax. And then I do notice that I tend to, I'm sitting and I'll tend to slip forward and I say, oh, yeah, bring that spine back. So I can just be totally relaxed. And it takes effort. It's not just, meditation. When you watch somebody meditating, it says you think, oh, they're not doing anything. No, there's a lot going on there.
Yes.
So anyway, that's just what I have noticed. Now, another
Yes.
form, another way to kind of reduce tension is by doing exercise. Because what that does is it gets the body moving and it allows the energy to flow. But I
Yes.
think, you need to take the time after you've exercised to let the body kind of relax and get back into its optimal state. So, doing some exercise to get the heart rate elevated and, get the muscle pumping and stuff like that. And then going into some stretching mode or something just to kind of let everything ease out and then go into a quiet relaxation. That's
Yes.
really, I think, the best combination overall.
Yes. And, I've talked to a lot of, I love your combination of, the exercise, the movement. I love to do that, do my exercise and then do a meditation. That's a great combination.
Right.
Now, a lot of people you and I have done a lot of personal development and meditate all the time. But when I get out there in the general public and I talk to people about meditation, oh, no, I can't do that. And I think the reason is because of our monkey minds. It's just very hard for people to sit. They feel like I'm not doing anything. It's very ingrained that you need to be doing something. You can't rest until you make some accomplishment or something like that.
Exactly.
So what I love about the healing facilitation method that I've learned, it's called EPC, which stands for Evolutionary Personal Care. Now, sometimes when I'm running the class, I'll call it meditation for overthinkers because it gives you something to focus on. And
evolutionary personal care, is that right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, let's do the base form of it so people can get an idea of what this is like. Okay? It's very simple and very powerful. So what you're going to do is start by breathing in your nose and out your mouth. So this just gets you connected with your breath. And then you're going to take your hands, your palms, and gently cup them over your eyes. Close your eyes.
Got to keep breathing.
Yep, breathing in your nose and out your mouth. And your hands are going to help you focus your attention to the area that's behind your eyes. And with that attention, you're going to bring your breath specifically to that location, almost like you have lungs behind your eyes. And also with that attention, you're going to be checking in to this specific location in your body. Is there ease here? Does this feel good to breathe into this area of your body? Okay, and then we're going to move to a new location. We're going to do 4 different locations. So the hands over the eyes is the first one. The next one is on your upper chest. So you're overlapping your palms. It's almost like the center of your palms are overlapped. And you're placing that on your upper chest. And same thing, close your eyes. Breathe in your nose and out your mouth. Bring your breath and your attention to the area that's behind your palms. And check in. Does it feel good to breathe here? If it doesn't feel good to breathe here, then go back to where it does, over your eyes, or if it didn't feel good there, you can even just put your hands down. We don't actually want to stay in an area that doesn't feel good to breathe into. So breathing in your nose and out your mouth. Checking in, do I have ease here? Do I have more ease in this location than I did over my eyes? And once you've checked in there, then you overlap your palms over the base of your sternum. This is the xiphoid process area.
So it's just below the second place.
Right. So where if you follow the bottom of your rib cage up to where
I've
your
got it.
ribs meet, that's the bottom of the sternum.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And same thing. Close your eyes, breathing in your nose and out your mouth. When I do this on a daily basis, I'm basically doing like 3 breaths. So it only takes a few minutes to check in. And again, if it doesn't feel good to breathe into this location, go back to one that does. And then the 4th place is over the belly button. So overlapping the palms gently over your belly button. Now, generally, when you're doing this exercise, you want to be comfortably lying on your back. I'm just sitting up for the purpose of the class. But usually you want to be like on a yoga mat, something not too soft, but comfortable, with your feet planted, your knees up. I think it makes it a little easier to tune into these locations. Okay, so that is the basic start of evolutionary personal care. It's like the check-in. Where do I have ease? Where do I notice that I can't breathe in very well?
All right. So this is great, and I know I'm going to start integrating that into my own practice. But I'm curious, what is it about those 4 locations that's so important? Why those 4, and maybe not somewhere else?
Well, first of all, they're along your midline, so it's along your spine. And yeah, that's a really good question. So yeah, when you start out with EPC, you're on the midline. I start usually over the eyes because we're also in our heads. People can usually find some ease in their heads because they're just used to thinking. That may not be the case for everybody. Some people have a challenge finding ease, so I would encourage them to try different places. But those are just locations where people usually can find some ease.
Right. Yeah. So I'm curious how the folks who are here in the audience did that. I assume you all followed the instructions precisely and did exactly what we were doing. So tell us, share with us how that experience was for you, and and if there's anything else that you'd like to ask about it. So are those the anchors of ease that you've been talking about, or is there something new that you want to share about that?
Yes, I heard a statement recently that hit me pretty profoundly from the teacher who taught me this. He said, the best thing you can teach another human being is how to find an anchor of ease in their body. And that just hit me so profoundly. It's such a great place to start if you believe in this idea that of law of attraction, what you focus on expands. It totally makes sense to focus on ease.
Yeah.
And what I really want people to take away from this was a big aha for me when I first learned this process, is I think we think about our body as like one thing, and oh, how am I feeling today? And oh, my anxiety is through the roof. It's this idea that your body can hold different states of consciousness.
Of course.
So even though I might be tuned into anxiety, which is somewhere in my body, there is also somewhere a place of ease. There's probably multiple places of ease in my body that I can tune into. And
Yeah.
as I was looking at I love the picture that you picked for this talk with the anchor, kind of a nautical theme,
Right.
because I was thinking this morning, one of the great things about EPC is we can create almost a life vest for those times that we are connected in that part of our body that, well, especially despair. I think about despair. So there's a lot of, I think a lot of us have been to workshops where you go and you just like dive in to the despair, but the problem is you can't get to the bottom of that. That's connected to the whole world. And there is a bottomless pit of despair. So I don't think we actually want to dive in there. But if you happen to be connected into that, it's nice to have a life vest.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been invited to dive into the despair.
Okay.
But I imagine there are workshop leaders out there who do all kinds of strange things. I noticed Sarah just said that this process reminds me a little bit of self-Reiki with some of the hand positions and supporting relaxation. So in case you don't know, Sarah
Sweet.
is a Reiki master. She does vocal Reiki. She's a really cool lady. She's been on my show a few times. Anyway, yeah, I get that that's what it reminds her of. For me, I noticed that when I was doing this, of course, I'm not totally focused on the exercise because I was listening to you at the same time. But I really like my hands over my eyes. There's warmth there that it's not something I do very often. And so when I did that, I said, wow, this feels good. I like that. And same thing
Awesome.
over my heart, I could feel the warmth from my hands just pressing into my heart, and then again on the sternum, and then on the belly button. I said, I like
Beautiful.
that. These hands are generating some kind of healing energy for me. I
Our
noticed
hands
that.
are magical.
Yeah. That's why we wave them a lot. And we say, we try to get you to look over here while we're fooling you with something over here.
Yeah, and the next step in EPC is to actually share some of that ease. You check into those points, you figure out which one feels like the best ease, and then which one is the second best ease. And you can use your hands to soak up that ease with a few breaths and then deliver it to the second. So it's an exercise in expanding ease.
Got it.
And when we're expanding ease, we're inviting those tensions to release.
I find it interesting, I don't even know what this is about, but I have a kind of a psychological resistance to that word ease.
Interesting.
Relaxation, I
Okay.
can buy, relax,
Uh-huh.
I can get, but ease, there's something about it that just doesn't quite work for me. And I don't know what that is.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the law of attraction because you've brought it up a few times. And I think it's a really important issue.
Yeah.
You say what you focus on expands. And I think what people don't understand about that statement is your focus isn't just what you're consciously aware of. This is the big thing that people seem to forget about the law of attraction. I can be sitting here and consciously focused on abundance and trying to expand abundance in my life. But if on the unconscious level I am I'm believing stories like there's not enough, or I can't have that, or this or that or the other thing, and I'm not aware of that, that's where my real focus is. So I may, on the conscious side of things, be looking at, yeah, I want to bring in more abundance in my life. But then I'm not experiencing that. So I say, oh, this law of attraction is bullshit because it doesn't work. Well, actually, it does work. It works exactly as it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And what it's doing is the law of attraction is bringing to me what I'm focusing on, which is there's not enough, but I'm not aware of that. And so what I think what we need to do, and this is what part of my work with people, getting into the shadow and learning what are your limiting beliefs? What are the stories that you tell yourself? It's not that we want to focus on those, but we do want to bring awareness to them so we can understand where they came from, how we brought them into our lives, and then find a way to unravel them so that we can turn it around and make it a positive expansion, if you like. The other thing that one of my teachers said something that really hit home for me. He says, if you're not doing the unconscious discovery, it's kind of like you're going out into the world, you're digging in the dirt, you're doing your whatever, and then you have to go to a wedding. So you come home and you put on a new suit and you go to the wedding. But the fact of the matter is, all you've done is covered over, right? The dirt is still there. The crud is still there. So if you really want to do a good job, you have to take off the old clothes, scrub off the dirt, then put on the new suit. This is kind of what we have to remember. And I will never forget that, because he talks about this concept of tabula rasa, which is clean slate. So if you want to really make the law of attraction work for you, you have to kind of go into your garden, pull out all the weeds and the rocks and the toxins, and then start planting your whatever it is you want to grow in that garden. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is something that I'm more recently exploring, because I've been through the programs where it's like, okay, we've got to, dig into the past, you do these things to remove the blocks. Back when I was doing the tapping into the wealth coaching, it was about uncovering and clearing the hidden blocks to success. And in the tapping, we would, give voice to the things that are coming up. And I started getting some feedback from some people saying, oh, when you're tapping, you're focusing too much. Or they would say, I noticed that you're focusing too much on the negative stuff, and really it should be this ratio of like 5 positive things to 1 negative thing. And, at first I was like, well, that's
so you're not tapping properly.
Well, everybody has their opinion.
I know.
But
yeah.
on law of attraction, I even recently heard Esther Hicks in one of her segments talking about you don't need to dig into the past. The things that you're attracting are in your conscious. And so I'm exploring this right now. And I agree with you that there's some dirt that needs to be cleaned out. And my question, or my exploration right now, is how are we cleaning out that dirt? Do we really need to go do that with our minds? Or, as I've been learning in Sarah McCrum's class, it's the job of the energy. Allow the energy to clean it out. So the relaxation is super important.
Right.
I don't know. I haven't, the jury's still out for me. And so I think it's a really good conversation. Right. Because, I think you can say, oh, well, we've got to uncover and clear this. That makes sense.
Right. I totally agree with that. Yeah. Now I see Nichelle has raised her hand, and Nichelle, if you have a question or something, can you put it into the chat so that we can see what it is you want to ask, and then we will certainly address that when we can. I see Thomas mentioned that the anchoring idea reminds him of NLP. Now, I only know very, very superficial amount of NLP, so I can't comment on that. Do you know NLP?
I don't know NLP that well, but I wouldn't be surprised if the concept comes from NLP, because I know that our teachers who've taught us evolutionary personal care do know a bit about NLP. Yeah.
Yeah. I have learned some techniques about anchoring that may well have come from neurolinguistic programming. But when I learned them under a different context, and they were all related to really about shadow work, facilitation and stuff. And I know that a lot of shadow work techniques come from there's a lot of intermarriage, if you like, between, the shadow work community and the NLP community. So who knows where anything comes from anymore.
Right.
So, but thanks for that comment, Thomas. I appreciate it.
Yes.
And I see Nichelle is typing, so maybe we'll get something from her in a moment. One of the things that we haven't really talked about very much here today, and that, well, did you want to say anything more about law of attraction before we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I think we're ready.
Well, the idea of forgiveness as part of healing, and I think this is one of the most important aspects personally. Forgiveness is a big topic. We can do a whole course on forgiveness.
Sure.
But basically, for me, the way I understand it, when I forgive somebody, it has nothing to do with the other person and everything to do with me. My only reason for forgiving is to, within myself, release any desire for retribution, revenge, justice, just let that all go, because my attachment to that is kind of like that closed fist. It keeps me from being relaxed. And when I am in that state of holding on to something, then what I am also doing is I am holding the other person responsible in my mind, and I'm giving my power away. When I forgive, it's one of the fastest and most beautiful ways to release all that stuff and reclaim my power.
Yeah, and what comes to mind for me on the topic of forgiveness is, are we remembering to forgive ourselves? I think that is a big challenge for many of us.
Right. Nichelle put in a comment. This is a good detailed comment, so I'm going to read this. She says, I am also an ELAN healing facilitator.
Yeah, Elon.
Amazing
Healing,
convo, Jenny. David, your point on finding the beliefs we hold is typically a very mental, emotional self-awareness process. That is true. This can be valuable, but often forgets the body and nervous system in the process. Well, not the way I do it. But yes, I agree with you. Most often it is simply an intellectual exercise. You need to get into the body in every possible way, because those beliefs that we have, even though we articulate them from the power of our brain, the beliefs and the energy they associate are in the body in different places. They get lodged there. So anyway, she says, utilizing EPC accomplishes the same as you described. We just go about it somatically rather than mentally, and can then remove these blocks at the root of where they are being held in the system. Totally agree. And for those who don't know, somatically means just going into the body and allowing the body to guide you to the places that need the healing. That's really how I understand it anyway. So we were talking about forgiveness there, and I kind of went on a sidetrack. Did you want to say something about that? Actually, you can say about anything you want.
Yeah, going off of what Nichelle said, I think forgiveness starts coming in naturally with the Elan healing work. Our brains are already so overworked. We're already so analytical. It's actually really a beautiful thing to be able to drop into the body and allow the body to help us release some of these things. And I have found myself just being more forgiving of myself and others in doing this work.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and it's kind of, when I think about it, it's kind of a relief. Oh, I don't have to figure this out. I can just connect here. My body can help me with this.
I think one of the misunderstandings about forgiveness is that when you forgive someone, you are in effect letting them off the hook. You are kind of saying it's okay that what they did. You're trying to forget what they did or whatever. And I say all of that is complete hogwash. It's not true at all. I can forgive someone for the most heinous of crimes, not allow them off the hook at all, require them to, to do what they have to do to clean up their own life. But I can release my own attachment to judgment and retribution coming from me. If I can do that and release myself from that negative energy, then what happens is I find ease coming in, to use your word, the moment I start doing that. Yeah, my ego mind says, wait a minute, you can't forgive that guy. He did this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
He's a horrible human being. That's what my ego mind says. And my ego mind wants to hang on to that. And I say, thank you for your perspective. Thank you for your perspective. I understand that it really bothers you, that I want to let this go. But it isn't gaining us anything to hold on to those kinds of thoughts.
Yes, it's true. Well, hopefully we've added another tool that people can use in their pursuit of forgiveness.
Well, I'm assuming now we've only talked about that first 3 or 4 minute process that you shared. I'm assuming that this EPC is a little more complex than that, a little bit more involved. What else does it bring in order to help people relax more into healing?
What does it bring? Well, I'm not quite sure how to answer that. Like I said before, it's letting go of the brain trying to figure it out and allowing the body to connect into those places of ease, which in Elan healing, we like to talk about as free energy. And the places that are bound up, that are painful or experiencing dis-ease, those are bound areas of energy. So in a very simple way, we're just connecting with that ease so that we can invite the bound energy to find its relationship with ease again.
So if I were to come to you then, and you were to take me through some kind of a session, what might I expect from you after we've gone through those that little starting point? What would come next?
Well, that would depend on what state of consciousness you arrived at the session in. So the work that I do is very dependent on how you're showing up and where your body has rapport. Now, evolutionary personal care is something that I can teach to people to do with themselves. And because of COVID and things shutting down, I've leaned into that and had an online class. But ideally, we would do the more specific work, or someone would come in person, and I would be making light contacts on the tissues surrounding their spine, which gets them to connect in to, and again, I'm kind of reading their body and reading where do they have rapport, where is their body saying, yes, I want to be pet here. It's kind of like a cat. You can tell where a cat wants to be pet. That's where we work.
Right.
And so we would just get more specific. So EPC is a general process that people can do with themselves, and it's powerful and it works great. People progress faster in care when we're actually doing the hands-on work with the light touch. So in terms of, when I work with someone, or when I start working with someone, I do a baseline palpation of their spine and the tissues around their spine to see where they're holding tension. And then we track that, to see the balance of tensions and if the tension is too high or too low. So we're checking in every 8 weeks or so to see what kind of progress we're making.
Right. So it sounds to me a little bit like, well, acupuncture or acupressure, although, you didn't use those words, but you're looking at the body and specific energy lines and all this kind of stuff. I don't even know what I'm saying now because I don't know the proper
Yeah, I'm not even
terminology.
really looking at lines. The contacts we make are all along, on the soft tissues surrounding the spine.
Okay.
And we have a particular process for how we determine which contacts are being made.
I see.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I guess in acupuncture, they use those needles pretty much anywhere that they on the body. So you're focusing strictly
Right.
on the back area, on the spine. So
Right.
I take it then your patient would be either seated or lying down on his or her stomach.
It depends.
Ah,
Yeah, when they first come in, they're lying down on their stomach. That's how we begin. When we do evolutionary personal care, like we've done a little bit here today, then they're on their back.
mhm.
Sometimes in the sessions, they are straddling the table.
Okay.
Just depends on what we're doing.
Yeah. And so you're
Mhm.
when you say palpating, I mean you're touching the back, the spine,
Mhm.
and you are watching for some kind of response. Is that right? Watching, listening.
It's more of feeling the tissues, feeling the tension in the tissues. Is it too high? Is it too low? We're looking for kind of an optimization of tension because you need tension, otherwise you're just like a gummy doll, right? So
That's
really the
right.
work is about optimizing tension, and the body knows how to do it. So the idea behind this, the Elan healing facilitation, is for the person to be able to connect into specific areas, and then the body is doing a reorganization of tensions.
Okay, so now you're starting to sound like a chiropractor. So, I mean, these are terms that I've heard from different kinds of practitioners,
Uh-huh.
and they all have amazing tools for doing the job. Your tools
Yep.
are quite amazing also. Uh, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so let's get people connected to you so they can find out more about this. And now, you say you need to have someone show up in person in order to be able to get the maximum benefit for this. So obviously, you'd be looking for people who live in the Auburn, California area. But
Yes.
what can you do for folks who are maybe not living close by? How much can you do for them remotely? That's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, remotely, I can guide them through EPC exercises.
Hmm.
Yep,
So you can
very
basically
possible.
teach them how to use the EPC process to help themselves relax better and to become more in tune with their body.
Exactly. Yep, connecting in, releasing excess tension. Yeah, a
Good,
lot can be done remotely,
good.
even though, I'm a big fan of in person because people need human touch.
Of course.
We need connection, and I think it's just tragic what's all the isolation and separation that's going on right now. But it is what it is, and just like we've been talking about, okay, that is what it is. Let's focus on what's working.
Yeah,
Right now,
exactly.
Zoom works. We
Right.
can connect over Zoom, and a person can connect with themselves with some guidance. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. Well, this has been pretty awesome, Jenny. I really appreciate your sharing with us today. I've learned a
Sure.
lot here. I've probably been asking more questions than I should have asked, but uh, I'm fascinated by this because I mean, the
Yeah.
work I do is somatic in nature. I do rely on the body and truth responses and various other things like that
Mm,
when I'm
mm,
working with people. And
yeah.
so I see so many overlaps with what I do and with what other practitioners do. It's really nice to hear a different perspective and to learn some new techniques. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that Sarah has a question in there about helping to let go of old unwanted behaviors without actually having to think about them. It's kind of a new concept, isn't it? We're all taught
Yeah,
that we've
well,
got to dive into that stuff. We got to figure it out. It's like, what if we don't? What if we can allow the energy and allow our bodies to just help us out with that? It's an interesting concept.
well, the very concept of letting go is hard enough for some people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
this idea of surrender, many people, when they hear that word, they think, oh, I'm giving up. I'm
Yeah.
giving in. I
Yeah.
am I'm sacrificing myself or something like that. They have all these stories that go on in their heads when they think about letting go,
Yeah.
And then there's the other side of it is, well, if I let go of this, then that means uh, I'm sending the message that that person doesn't have to pay for what he or she did. It's part of that forgiveness process. So,
Right.
yeah, letting go is a challenging one, definitely for the ego mind.
Oh, yeah.
It's trivially easy for the soul. Our spiritual nature is designed to do that, is to design to love and not have any kind of conditions on people. It's the
Yeah.
mind that
Well,
does most of that.
yeah, we've got survival drivers attached to that.
That's right.
So it
Yeah,
is hard to let
that's
go.
right. So, is there anything else you'd like to say before I close out today?
Oh, God, I really appreciate you having me on. I think it's been a great conversation. I've had a lot of fun, so thank you.
Oh, well, you're most welcome, and I'm glad you're able to join me today. It's always fun, seeing you and and sharing space with you and having a conversation. So, thank
You're
you for being here,
welcome.
and thank you all for being here on the live presentation, and for those of you who may be watching the recording, thank you for coming by. I just like to remind everyone who's here that the recordings of this and every other show I've done are on my website at lifemasterytv.com, life-mastery-tv.com. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation and maybe many others as well. When you, after, maybe in an hour or so, you're going to receive an email from the platform inviting you to write up a little review. So I encourage you to please do that. It helps us to spread the word and helps more people to learn about what we're doing here. And finally, I would invite you all to remember what I call the Life Mastery Mantra. And it's something that you can recite for yourself every day. It goes like this.
Oh, yeah, I'll write this down.
I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, thank you so much for joining us here on a Life Mastery TV.